It's Wednesday, October 28. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Carol Francis. Tropical storm Zeta inundated parishes across the island with flood rains. In its wake, it left displacement, death, damaged infrastructure, and a hefty national repair bill. In Parliament on Tuesday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness appraised the nation about the preliminary costs of damages and its implications for an already swamped economy. We get more in this report from Melvin Pennant.
$2 billion. That's the preliminary estimate of damage done to the country by Tropical Storm Zeta.
The preliminary damage estimate, Madam Speaker, is close to 2 billion Jamaican dollars. And that's preliminary. And my assessment from what I have been seeing and what has been reported is that the estimate will rise significantly. This covers road clearance, drain cleaning, creating access and patching, but it does not include the cost of permanent repairs or major rehabilitation. So this $2 billion would only cover what would be needed, for example, to clear the gorge or the roadways that have been made impassable, to clear certain landslides and land slippage, to patch certain roads to allow for the smooth flow of traffic, and to undertake clearing of drains and gullies and so forth. But if there were, for example, a collapsed bridge or a collapsed road, that would not be within this $2 billion amount.
Prime Minister Holness, in his address to the House of Representatives, says the recent rains are but one more example of climate change.
Various climate phenomena such as La Nina can result in increased tropical cyclone activity and the development of significant rainfall in the Caribbean, this representing greater variability in our weather patterns. However, we must also contend with the real effects of climate change on our weather and environment, which leads to more intense weather events and rainfall episodes, meaning higher volumes and shorter periods of rainfall. As well, in the converse, as more intense and longer periods of drought.
Though October is traditionally a rainy month, the high activity of the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season has led to greater than normal rain levels. With damage assessments still ongoing, the country will have to wait for possible weeks before a true figure of the damages is forthcoming. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
Some residents in Bull Bay, St. Andrew, are calling on the relevant authorities to repair a gully that has turned a roadway in their community into a river that is difficult to cross. The impact of the recent persistent heavy rains has left many in Wees Avenue, 9 Miles, Bull Bay in despair. This is due to the consequences of living in what some are now saying is a high-risk area. The damage caused by the heavy rains have left many residents at the foot of mounting costly repairs. For others, the situation raises concerns over plans to complete houses already under construction. The raging water, which found its way into several homes, provided a clear picture of the consequences of building houses in the proximity of a riverbed.
The riverbed didn't drench properly, so because of that you have a breakaway, so all the water just come over this side. As you can see right now, the riverbed is much higher than the road, so the water does have no choice more than come over on the road and use the road as it get away.
This is Bull Bay, this is the street. Look at it, it's terrible. I tell you, right now we can't go nowhere. Have my kids them fill up, but from before this, we are calling them and tell them to come clean out the gully, and nobody no come all now. So them like when them see disaster. Well, see disaster, yeah, because no car can't pass the road there, so. You understand? You need to go further up, sir, and see what is going on. Right now our house flood out. See me look on neighbor friend, so see them have to scrape the gully, the road. A road this will stand up on and so it look, bare sand, bare dirt. Right? Them something I need to stop.
While it is difficult to prevent most natural disasters, residents of Wees Road in 9 Miles Bull Bay believes the battle against the possibility of even greater natural disasters can be won. They argue that if the authorities are forward-thinking, they will minimize the threat posed by a gully that runs adjacent to their community.
On this gully, it need to wire. They could do the stone and do it step by step. And then would have a better because they may come and fix the road and the road is so nice, but the water burst 3 places at the gully. And if it was getting mining, then it would be better. It burst 3 places and the water don't have any way to run but just on the road. And the bridge is now black. And if the rain continue falling, then we are in danger. So I'm asking you, please, to come and mine the gully.
We want some people to come deal with the gully. Because these people are always come here and push up the banking, and the banking is not the gully. The gully need to dig out, not push up. Because we live here for 50 years, and this is the worst disaster I ever see in a Bull Bay when it comes to the river. Because the river now mine and maintain properly. That is the government or the system for them responsibility to that.
Residents of Wees Road, 9 Miles Bull Bay want the matter dealt with now, while there is the proverbial calm before a possible storm. Meanwhile, at the 10 Mile or Tamarind Tree Gully, where erosion is a problem, employees of China Harbour Engineering Company employed huge machines in a race against Mother Nature. Crews were out diligently mining the gully, as well as strategically placing huge cement boulders to create a barrier. The ultimate goal: to protect the edge of the gully bank by installing huge cement boulders as the recent heavy rains threatens to undermine the banks of the gully. Men and machine worked tirelessly for hours, using technical methods to determine the placement geometry and elevations of the huge blocks to ensure the best possible protection of the banks of the gully. Dog owners could pay up to $3 million or face up to 15 years in prison if their dog attacks, injures, and/or causes the death of a person. The related issues were debated in Parliament on Tuesday as members looked at the Dogs Liability for Attacks Act 2020. Simone Absalom reports.
The Dogs Liability for Attacks Act 2020 provides for criminal and civil liability for an owner of a dog that attacks, injures, or causes the death of a person. It notes that a dog must be fitted with restraint to be kept under control. The legislation seeks to make the owner responsible for preventing his or her dog from biting or presenting a menace to any individual. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck led the debate.
Nowadays, we see far too many dogs in the public space, running up and down on the street, chasing persons who are going about their normal business. And, Madam Speaker, it's just not right.
The legislation also notes that the owner of a dog has a duty to ensure that at all times, while the dog is in a public place, the dog is kept under control and that the dog is fitted with a muzzle that prevents the dog from biting any individual. The bill proposes fines ranging from $500,000 to $3 million, or imprisonment of 6 months to 15 years. There is also provision for instances when the animal will have to be killed. Member of Parliament Mark Golding says the legislation is necessary, but shared some concerns.
Criminal liability is quite a different thing. And I feel that to impose criminal liability on an owner when somebody is not hurt or injured, I think goes too far. That's my own view on the matter. An individual is attacked by a dog who has witnessed such an attack may report the attack to a constable. And remember, and then subsection 2 there says that the constable who receives that report has to investigate it, and if the investigation determines that the individual was attacked but did not result in injury, and that the owner of the dog had not previously been warned, then the constable can issue a warning. And of course, if that warning has been issued and the dog subsequently attacks someone, even if it doesn't injure someone, criminal liability flows under Section 6 and Section 8. The point I want to make in relation to 10, Minister, is that there's no reference to the location in which the attack takes place in clause 10. In 6, in both 6, and which is dealing with criminal liability, and 5, which is dealing with civil liability, liability, whether civil or criminal, only arises where the attack or injury takes place other than the premises or part thereof where the dog is kept or permitted to live or remain.
His concerns were rebutted.
The bill, I find, is a perfect balance between the rights of dog owners as well as that of aggrieved persons. While it addresses the rights of dog owners, it gives controls, duties, liabilities, and subsequently penalties. An aggrieved person is not without recourse, and this is aptly contained in sections 5 and 6. What was my main concern, especially as I consider it to be one of our rural realities, was the omission of livestock. I note that the minister has, by way of amendment, now included this.
In his response, Minister Chuck says he'll be taking the concerns into consideration.
And the truth of it, member from South West Clarendon, the Dog Liability Act of 1877, which is now being repealed, has always been there. But with that civil liability, look what has happened. It has not been a deterrent. And if the civil liability is not a deterrent to all the damage and injuries that dogs have caused in this country, it is the people of this country are asking what should be done to stop the rampage that so many dogs engage in across Jamaica. And I say, Madam Speaker, this act is meant to send a signal to dog owners. There's not only civil liability if dogs injure innocent bystanders, because let me put it, if the bystander or the pedestrian provoke the dogs, it could be a good defense. So we're talking about innocent bystanders or pedestrians where the dogs attack them through no fault of theirs. The bill is a quasi-criminal bill in most cases. Somewhat like traffic offenses, it's a regulatory bill to be a strong deterrent and to encourage dog owners to ensure that they keep and maintain their dogs in their private property.
The Justice Minister closed the debate with the aim of adding further amendments to the bill. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom.
To ensure that students from low-income families get access to home-based learning with their own laptop, a group of past students of the Robert Lightburn High School recently donated 13 laptops to the school.
Some of us are overseas. We are doing this group, farmers group, to help the school in whichever way we can to assist. So we thank God for what we have done and giving us more strength to go further.
Principal Paul Clare welcomed the act of kindness by the class of '96 and appealed to others to join the effort.
This was the very same group of students who in March were very instrumental in assisting us with giving out care packages to our students who were affected then. And so once again, they are here to rise to the occasion in assisting our students, and I'm sure that the entire Robert Lightburn High School family say thank you to this team of past students. As the call went out early on, I am also joining the team in asking other past students of the institution to come forward and assist us as best as possible. as we ensure that this generation of children who are at risk do not fall by the wayside. Well, out of the set of computers that I have received, I have already donated one to a community group where students are benefiting right as we speak. They are using it to gain access to the classroom, the Google Classroom, and all reports have so far indicated that it's a success.
Tuesday, October 26, was the 108th anniversary of the birth of Randolph Samuel Williams, more popularly known as Ranny Williams or Mas Ran. The well-known Jamaican actor, comedian, radio and television personality performed in and wrote many of Jamaica's national pantomime. In honor of his contribution to theater in Jamaica, the Ranny Williams Entertainment Center, which includes an amphitheater, is named for him. Marlon Samuels has more on the life and legacy of Rudolph Ranny Williams.
Rudolph Ranny Williams was born in Panama on October 26, 1912. He moved to Jamaica with his mother when he was 6. He attended Calabar High and Kingston Technical High Schools in Kingston. He started his acting career as a youngster reciting poetry in church. In 1930, he was invited by the Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey to be a part of an entertainment group. He later began performing in national pantomimes, some of which he wrote. His voice was one of the first local voices heard at the startup of the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation in 1959. He starred with Louise Bennett Coverley in the radio series, The Lou and Ranny Show. In an interview, he recounted one of the stories he told on that day.
I told them a story about the umbrella, It's a little limerick, and I hope I can remember it now to tell you, Charles. The rain, it falls upon the just and on the unjust fella, but mostly on the just, because the unjust steals the just umbrella, the umbrella.
He shared an amazing working relationship and friendship with the legendary Louise Bennett Coverley.
Louise, she puts on weight quickly, and she sometimes has on too much. And the doctor will put her on a diet and say, no chocolate, no ice cream. And Louise will say, not eating any more chocolate, no ice cream. And then during rehearsal or showtime, she would whisper to me and say, go buy a chocolate for me now, or bring ice cream for me now, drop it now for ice cream. And I said, Louise, you can't. And she just would go on and have her ice cream.
Mas Ran died on August 11, 1980. To celebrate his amazing life and legacy, floral tributes were made on the anniversary of his 108th birthday.
And he has left behind an immeasurable legacy for the Jamaican theater fraternity. That legacy, ladies and gentlemen, is here for the world to see. But we have to create space and opportunity for that to happen and for it to be meaningful. We will ramp up our efforts to digitize our theatrical works, including those of Mas Ran, and make them available in interactive format.
The anniversary was also marked with the performance of a dramatic piece.
Ranny?
Man passport!
Ranny?
Man passport!
So one day know me there at school now because me a bright boy at school. But my teacher never thinks me so bright, so she think most I don't. Why? But anyway, when me there at school this particular day, teacher said, Inspector coming to the school today. But Ranny, since you're so bright, give the other children them a chance. So you go on home today. But every time I notice Inspector come, teacher always send me home. So me say, no, sir. Me I go try just scoop them up and put them things and me gone on my yard. And I just take on, put on back my cap and put my exercise book in my back pocket and I go sit down at the back of the class. So when me there at the back of the class, now me see Inspector come, man. When Inspector walk in, good morning, boys and girls. Because then the Inspector used to talk good, back in the day. So everybody say good morning. Say, I'm going to ask a few questions just to determine how bright you all are. So one of the questions they asked now is, 4 and 4, everybody jump up. Me, sir. And the man, everybody said, 8. He said, whoa, what a bright set of children. And he asked some other question. So me sit down under the back, and me well want to say something. Then all of a sudden, me hear him say, oh, let me ask you something. Who can tell me how old I am? So me look pan him, man, and me no hear nobody answer. So me look pan him, and me say, me, sir, me. So of course, teacher hold on pan the Sybil Jack, and I look pan me strange. But me say, me go and answer the question today. I said, sir, you are not 1 day over 40. He said, my goodness, what a bright boy. How did you know that? So me look pan him and me look pan teacher, because teacher sit down there vexed now. And me say, well, sir, I have a brother who is 20 years old, and him is a half idiot. Ranny?
Man passport.
Ranny?
Man passport.
Take me leave.
The PBCJ joins in saluting the life and legacy of Rudolph Ranny Williams. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuel.
Time now for the latest fluctuations in the financial markets. Gabriel Thompson has the business report.
Jamaica's employed labor force has seen a decline of 10.8% when compared to those employed in 2019. According to the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, STATIN, the island recorded a 6% decline in its labor force in July. Speaking recently, STATIN's Director General Carol Coy says there has been a decline of 81,200 people in the labor force compared to 2019. As at July 1, 1,279,600 people made up Jamaica's total labor force. The STATIN Director General said the unemployment rate increased for both males and females. The male rate increased to 11.5%, while there was a 14% increase in the female rate. This shift in numbers has been attributed to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, which has continued to negatively impact the island's economic activity. In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 1,562 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 89 stocks, of which 36 advanced, 45 declined, and 8 traded firm. The junior market index declined by 3 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services, AMG Packaging and Paper Company, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, 138 Student Living Variable Preference, and 1834 Investments Limited. Trading firm were Cargo Handlers Limited, Consolidated Bakers Jamaica, and Jamaican Teas Limited. General Accident Insurance Company Limited was the volume leader with 4.6 million units, followed by Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with 2.3 million units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with 1.2 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Tuesday, October 27, ended trading at $146.71. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $112.25. The pound sterling traded for $192.16, and the euro ended trading at $176.23. Oil prices went into reverse on Wednesday, giving up the previous day's gains, as a surge in U.S. crude stocks and rising coronavirus infections in the United States and Europe fanned fears of a supply glut and weaker fuel demand. Brent crude futures slid $1.20 to $40 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell $1.49 to settle at $38.08 a barrel. And that does it for this edition of the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
Guidelines governing traditional cardiopulmonary resuscitation (CPR) have been revised due to the highly contagious COVID-19 virus. In this edition of Living Healthy, we highlight the importance of learning about CPR and the adjusted practices due to COVID-19.
If someone collapses with no physical response, we only have a few moments to offer life-saving intervention, or CPR. That's cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It is an emergency life-saving procedure that is done when someone's breathing or heartbeat has stopped. It's often needed after an electric shock, heart attack, or drowning. Here's how it usually works.
What do you want, ladies and gentlemen?
Ambulance.
And what else? AED machine. Check breathing now. Don't touch the person, but scan the chest. For at least 5 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds. Any breathing and signs of life?
Mask on the face. Give 2 breaths. 1 breath.
2 good chest rise.
2 breaths. Mask off. Hands on the chest. Ready again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Mask on the face. 2 breaths. Mask off. Check the person. Is the person back to life? Yes.
Now listen to the Heart Foundation's Director of Emergency Cardiac Care, Dr. Hugh Mark Wong, as he explains the changes being implemented in the practice of CPR within the new COVID-19 normal. He was speaking at a JIS think tank session.
The thrust of the Heart Foundation and my department is to teach persons to do CPR, whether they are medical professionals or lay persons. Now, there are some concerns, and these are very great concerns, because every time someone does CPR on a person, whether a relative or a stranger, there is always a risk of infection, even for COVID-19. Now, because COVID-19 is so infectious, SARS-CoV-2 is so infectious, we have had to modify, and will have to modify, how we approach somebody who loses their pulse or collapses. First thing we must recognize is that the care worker, the person who's providing care, is at risk of getting an infection from the person if it's suspected or confirmed to be. Within community spread, everybody is a suspected person. What do we do? First, the healthcare worker or the lay person has to think of themselves, so they have to be safe. In the health facility, we have PPEs. As a lay person, we do not have PPEs usually, so one has to do certain maneuvers to ensure that the risk of infection is less. How do we do this? We do this by doing chest compressions only CPR, because we know that SARS-CoV-2 is transmitted in a respiratory fashion. Chest compression only has been in existence for a long while and has been shown to be effective, because once you're doing chest compressions, you're moving blood around and there's passive movement of air in and out of the lungs. Okay? Now, what is recommended from the American Heart Association is that if a lay person comes upon somebody who's collapsed and assesses for signs of life and there is none, or the patient is not breathing, or there is no pulse, then we should do chest compressions only, CPR. We should, if we are worried about bystanders and ourselves, place a face covering, Dr. Innes would say, lightly over the airway and proceed to do chest compressions only. All right? The covering, the face covering serves 2 things. Okay? It prevents the expiratory gases from the victim to go into the environment, and the layperson get infected, and prevents the provider getting infected. Once we're doing that, we should call for help, and the help should be an ambulance or some other agency, and advise them that if you think the person is a suspected COVID, so they can make preparations for transport of that victim to the appropriate facility. The old dispensation in terms of assessing the patient for breathing and so on, we dispense with that. We do not bend over and look, listen, and feel for breathing. We assess the patient and see if they're breathing. and assess them by doing a pulse check. We start chest compressions.
Dr. Wong says there are exceptions to the rule. For example, if it's a child who lives in your household.
Usually, the cause of cardiac arrest in a child is due to a respiratory problem. And usually giving breaths can be a lifesaver in these cases. Therefore, the caregiver, the layperson in this instance, will have to decide whether it is for me to give breaths to this infant, this child, rather than chest compressions only. The American Heart Association states that you do breaths if you should consider giving breaths if you live in the same household with that child and you may have similarly been infected.
After ensuring that the victim is no longer in danger, you should wash your hands or use an alcohol-based sanitizer. And that's your Living Healthy Report. I'm Simone Absalom.
And that's our package. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place, for more news and sports right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.